follow that. That's not American law, okay? It's preserved minority opinion. There are many preserved minority opinions in the Gemara and amongst the Rishonim. In the Talmud...
Who are the Rishonim?
Oh,
they came after the Gaonim. The Gaonim came after the... Wait, who are the rabbis of the Talmud with the Tanaim? The rabbis of the Mishnah with the Tanaim. The rabbis from the 3rd century of the Common Era to the 6th century were the Amoraim. After the Amoraim were the Gaonim.
There was other people too, but I don't know.
There were the Rishonim. So the Rishonim are basically from the 10th century to the Shulchan Aruch.
Yeah, which is like 500 years later.
15th century. So
they usually
we're talking
split
about
on
the great sages from around the 10th century to the 16th century of the Common Era.
Right. Basically, when you talk about Jewish Masorah, it works like this. You talk about the Talmud as that's like the starting point, which is all the discussions that took place, let's say, from
Talmud is the discussions from year 200 of the Common Era
no.
600.
I'm talking about the Mishnah too.
Oh, the Mishnah is the oral tradition that it goes back all the way to Sinai and is finally put into written form by Yehuda Hanazi in 200 of the Common
Yeah,
Era.
but the conversations are quoting people who were alive, let's say...
From like 200 years before the Common Era to 200 years after the Common Era.
That's fair. Okay, now, that whole time period from when he wants to say 200 years BC, I don't like using these terms, till about 600 or 700 or maybe 800 AD, is that whole time period.
Yeah.
All those people are quoted in the Talmud. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
Then, like, the time period from there till about 1500, which is like the next 700 years, is generally called the time of the Rishonim. Yeah, there was Gaonim and there was 2 other little groups there for about 50 years each, but generally that's called the Rishonim. The Rishonim are considered the major commentators with all of the authority power on the Talmud. And there are some big names there. That includes Rashi, who's thought of as the primary commentator on the Chumash, on the written Torah. He's also the simple explanation on the Talmud. Rambam, who was considered a major codifier of Jewish law.
Yeah.
He lived in that time period. The Ramban, who
lived
was
100 years later.
Yeah, was also on the same level as Rambam. Tosfos, which is the grandsons and the yeshiva members of Rashi, are also considered major sources of halacha and explanations of the Talmud. Also in that group would be these guys like, the...
Takna Rabbi Gershon.
Yeah, but he's before them.
Okay. It doesn't matter.
Okay, whatever. Those are like the big guys. Now, if there's an argument in the Mishnah or in the Talmud, like in the Mishnah, you might have an argument between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai.
Mm-hmm.
Happens a lot. They argued all the time. We usually poskin like Beis Hillel, but we preserve Beis Shammai into the Mishnah.
Right.
We preserve it for posterity. You can't today look at Beis Shammai and say, "Oh, that's what we follow. Let's follow that because that's Judaism." It's not. We don't accept that opinion. It's not part of our Masorah.
Well, it's still part of the Masorah. It's
no,
not
it's not
necessarily binding.
It's not part of our Masorah.
It's part of the tradition. Masorah means tradition. It's part of we record.
Okay. But it's not part of the okay. Let me give you
binding.
Let me give you an example.
We don't usually go with the rulings. Of
like Hanukkah, you light from 1 to 8.
Yeah.
Beis Shammai says you start on the first day with 8, and then you just go down 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We don't do that. If somebody was to come along and go, "Well, I hold by Beis Shammai," I say, "Then you're an idiot," because there's no such thing. We don't hold by that. There's no shita today. That's not part of our Masorah. It's only preserved as a minority dissenting opinion, if you will, and it's wrong. We don't follow that. Do you know why the arguments are? Yeah, no, it's actually wrong.
It's a different opinion, but it's not the binding one.
It's not what we follow. And it's very important to follow the Masorah and not open up the books and try to find an opinion that you like better. Because all of the the research, if you will, of finding opinions is done. That was done 1,000 years ago. We're past that. Our job now is just to preserve in its authenticity and in its, more than just authentic, but in its...
divine truthiness.
No, but it's exactly as you received it from the generation before.
Right.
What's the word on that?
Vidor.
Yeah, just
From
preserve it
generation to
exactly as so that it's authentic and it reproduced exactly how you were raised. Okay, in the time that we've had the Torah from Mount Sinai, 2448, so it's 3,300 years. Every single generation absolutely knew and believed that Torah was given. No, not Torah. That the universe was created in 6 24-hour days. It's brought down in all the major Rishonim. But even if it wasn't, even if there was one holdout Rishon, it wouldn't matter. It doesn't matter because we have Rashi and we have Tosfos, Rashi, Rashbam, Rambam. Everybody says this. So if one of them went the other direction, and we see today we don't follow that, it doesn't matter. So to try to hang your hat on that and say, "Oh, there's room for evolution," is just apikoursis. It's not. It's ignorant. It's ignorance. It's ignorance to suggest that, because what you're doing is you're going against the Masorah. Accepting the Masorah is a fundamental rule of Judaism. If you preserve everything exactly how it was transmitted to you, into your generation, then you're following Judaism. If you bend and you start doing things that take away from changing what was handed to you from the previous generation, you're no longer following Judaism. And it's just that. If the generation, people like get together and they have a movement and they move away from it, they're not Judaism. They're following Reform or Conservative or Pragerism.
Is there anything else you wanted to add on Genesis? Because I wanted